we all wonder what happens after we die. But what if the journey doesn't just end or even just continue as a human? One spiritual text we're looking at today offers a really startling possibility that we could come back as an animal. So today, we're going to dig into the logic behind this pretty profound idea.
Okay, so could a human actually be reincarnated as an animal? I know, it might sound a little out there at first, but this idea is actually super old, and it's rooted in a lot of different spiritual traditions. And the text we're diving into today, it doesn't just throw the question out there. It lays out a pretty compelling case for why the answer might just be yes.
So what this text does is present four logical reasonings to back up this idea. And just to be clear, our goal here isn't to convince you one way or the other. It's really just to understand the logic as the author lays it out. Think of it as opening a window into this really fascinating spiritual framework.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at this startling possibility. Then we'll dive into the cosmic laws and consciousness behind it. After that, we'll explore the idea of balance and the transit station, and we'll wrap up with 4 warnings to heed. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the startling possibility itself. So the core idea here is really straightforward. The author is basically saying that reincarnation isn't just a human-to-human thing. They argue that there's a real pathway for souls to move between human and animal forms. And get this, it's not random. It's supposedly governed by some very specific, even predictable laws.
So that brings us to the first 2 reasonings, which are all about these cosmic laws and the nature of consciousness. These are really the foundation of the whole argument, focusing on these invisible forces that the author believes run the entire universe, and us.
All right, reasoning number 1. The law of cosmic energy balance. You can think of this as, cosmic bookkeeping. The text argues that the universe works on this strict principle of balance. Everything has to even out. So, anything you're given, it has to be repaid. If you receive something, doesn't matter if it's help or money or even just emotional support, a kind of cosmic debt is created. And that debt, according to this logic, has to be paid back, one way or another. And this idea, it pops up in our language all the time. The author points to old sayings like, "Your great kindness cannot be repaid. I'm willing to be a cow or a horse for you in the next life." Now, we might hear that as a metaphor, right? But in this view, it's not. It's seen as a literal spiritual contract, a debt of gratitude so huge that maybe, just maybe, the only way to repay it is through service in a totally different form, in a whole other life.
Okay, so if the first law is about external debts, this next one, reasoning number 2, is all about what's going on inside us. It's called the law of consciousness. And the idea here is that your soul is your consciousness, and the state of that consciousness, what it's like, what it's focused on, is the number one thing that decides what kind of body you get in your next life.
And the connection they make is super direct. The argument goes like this. If a person's consciousness, their thoughts, their habits, their desires, if all that starts to act and feel a lot like a certain animal, then the universe or this cosmic law is going to match that soul to the right body. Basically, your form follows your consciousness. You become what you are.
Now, the last 2 reasonings kind of zoom out. They build on these first 2 ideas, but they look at the bigger picture, the whole ecosystem of life, and where we as humans fit into it all.
This brings us to reasoning number 3. The life balance law. You can think of this as a kind of spiritual ecology. The idea is that nature has its own self-regulating system to keep everything in balance. It's designed so that no single species, not even us, can just take over forever without some kind of consequence. There's always this cosmic push and pull happening to maintain a balance.
And to make this idea less abstract, the author gives a really interesting example. They point to the ratio of human males to females, which stays remarkably stable, right around 51 to 49. The argument is that the balance between all species works the same way. It's what you'd call a dynamic equilibrium. It might shift a little here and there, but over the long run, the big picture stays balanced.
So where does this lead? To a pretty provocative conclusion. If the human population is booming, and at the same time animal populations are shrinking, well, that balance is out of whack, and it has to be restored. So the source asks, where do new animals come from? And it suggests they come from us. That the rebalancing happens through reincarnation, with souls moving from the crowded human world back into the animal kingdom to keep that cosmic scale level.
And that brings us to the 4th and final reasoning, which paints a really unique picture of what it means to be human. The author suggests we're not the end of the line. Instead, humanity is like a transit station, a central hub.
In this view, being human is like being at a cosmic crossroads, where souls from all kinds of life forms can arrive and depart. And that's key, because it means that traffic goes both ways. Animals can be reborn as humans, and humans, well, they can be reborn as animals.
Okay, so what are we supposed to do with all this? The author doesn't just leave it as some abstract idea. The text actually wraps up with 4 very specific warnings, or maybe bits of advice for how to live if you see the world this way.
So, based on everything we've talked about, here are the warnings. First, don't take on debts, whether they're financial, emotional, or debts to nature, because you will have to pay them back. Second, look inward. Really examine your own consciousness and work to get rid of any animal-like traits. Third, pretty straightforward, don't harm animals, either domestic or wild, because you might just be creating a karmic connection that pulls you right back into their world. And finally, listen to wise teachings and steer clear of any evil or negative influences that could drag your consciousness down.
And the author wraps all of this up with a really powerful ancient saying, "Heaven's net is vast, it misses nothing." It's a perfect summary of the whole idea, right? That there's this inescapable system of cosmic justice. The net is huge, it covers everything, but the holes are tiny. And in the end, nothing and no one gets through without their actions being counted.
So, there you have it. From cosmic balance sheets to the inner state of our consciousness, we've walked through a pretty structured vision of life, death, and all the consequences in between. It's a worldview that sees every single action, every single thought, as a thread in this giant cosmic web. Which really just leaves one final question, and this one's for you to think about. What does this perspective on cosmic justice and reincarnation mean to you?